All right. And today is what? The 16th. Yes, the 16th of November. And today is the midterm. And we will get started on that shortly. I don't want to bog you down with any announcements or anything, future talking about this week or anything. I know you're focused on the midterm, but there are a couple things I need to bring up. Um, One is not in relationship to the midterm, but it is about a job opportunity. Oh, Nicole, thank you for reminding me. Hold on one second here. As most of you know, I cannot multitask. So give me one second here. Forgot to get the closed caption on. I'll get that here shortly. And that should do it right there. All right. Thank you, Nicole. Anyway, back to the one announcement that I do want to make. Um, there's a job opportunity, entry level work. It is, I think it's involving substations, electrical. You don't have to know anything about electrical. You just have to know AutoCAD uh, well in a 2D environment. And let me go back here real quick to the opening before I lie to you about it. Let's see. Um, Candidates and proficient in AutoCAD, power projects, supporting power projects, substation designs, and they can work with AutoCAD. Candidates do not need to have direct experience doing any kind of work. I think he meant any kind of electrical work. They will provide depth training once on board. So entry level, I don't know where it's at. Usually this is through Aerotech, through one of our contacts there at Aerotech. He contacts me probably every couple months and looking for drafters. So it is entry level. If you are interested, please send me your resume. You guys are an advanced group, and if you're looking for work, and with online classes, believe me, this is a great opportunity to get your feet wet in something. Even if you maybe don't like the company 100% or whatever it is, uh, get your feet wet with in the office. You can't buy more valuable resume material than having some work experience on that. So please do that. James Meek says, I don't know what company they. Um, it's a hiring company. I hate using the word headhunter, but anyway, a headhunter looking for representing a company. I don't know who they are. They won't say, obviously. Yes, Aerotech is a headhunter, right? They're a pretty good company. I get updates on the jobs. Yeah, they're a great company. We've several students over the years have got jobs for them. And one thing I will tell you too, um, that they are right now. This is entry level. I mean, they're talking about training. Usually, they're looking for somebody who has their associates or within about one semester of their associates. So this is really, I don't want to say rare, but these type of opportunities, entry level, just know basic CAD. He's not saying any more than that. Don't come along often. And I will emphasize they want to start setting up interviews for this week. So do not delay in that. Don't put it off if you are interested in this. All right, so that covers that. And then one other thing I wanted to bring up, it may be a little bit unfair in this midterm, was I mentioned to you that the drawing portion will be a sprinkler design for a front and backyard. So some of you have already returned your uh, packet for this week. That was due today. And on that, you had a sprinkler assignment for your front yard project. And I gave you comments back. So that might give some people a little bit of a heads up on what to make sure that's on the midterm exam. So with that said, let me Let me give you some of the items that were missing, some of the um, packets that I have corrected, and this will give everybody a level playing field, what I'm looking for in the um, midterm, sprinkler design midterm. So some of the things that we're missing, ICVs that are irrigation control valves, those are zoned areas. So you have to have an ICV area for uh, each zone, and you can't put all the sprinklers on one line because this gets into the sprinkler calculation on pressure, which we weren't going to go down there with mathematics and knowing what your PSI is at the water meter, et cetera, et cetera. Um, we weren't going to go down that road, but we do need to isolate different zones. Again, the zoning will be not only based on pressure and location of the sprinklers and type of sprinklers, but also the different areas they're irrigating. So if you have a drip system um, for the planters, which is required, you do need to show the emitters. Now, you can show the emitters with just a black dot and call out one of them, 25 emitters TYP, which means typical, all right? So make sure you call out the emitters, make sure the drip line is on a separate zone and the ICV is called out. Typically, you're going to have about, you'll have the ICVs located where the main line, the main feed line from or let me go back up, the main line from the water meter comes in there. And the ICVs are going to be the supply lines. And that's another thing that was missing. Some of you had both the supply lines and the lateral lines colored the same. You always have to have a supply line, a main supply line to the different zones. So you're going to have a supply line that goes to a different zone for each zone, and then you have laterals that are coming off that supply line. So typically you have a larger pipe coming off as laterals, and I'm not going to get picky on what pipe size because that gets back into pressure and everything, but typically you'll have a larger pipe size, 3/4 going down to half. The half will be the laterals. So that was something that was missing, was supply, the main supply line, and the pipe size, and then laterals called out with separate colors. All right, so make sure you designate that. Make sure that you're using half heads along the concrete area. Some of you were trying to cover your lawn area and the edge of the grass area with one full head sprinkler. Um, Typically, you're going to have the sprinklers irrigating back towards the lawn area and not towards the concrete area. So the edges of walkways and driveways will get half heads, or depending on the pattern that's needed there, maybe a quarter head if it's in a corner. Use corner heads as well as 3/4 or a quarter head, whatever the setup is that you need for better coverage. Some of you were missing complete coverage, getting generally in good coverage, but there were some dry areas, maybe because of the irregular lot, that gets back at using the different types of heads for the edge of the concrete walkways or driveways, or planters even. You want the irrigation to be blowing or irrigating away from the planters. You have the drip system of the planters, but you don't want the heads of the irrigation system, the sprinkler heads, hitting the plants. You want those deep rooted or watered with the drip line. Another thing is make sure that you're going to have sprinklers that irrigate away from the house. Some of you were hitting it towards the house. Not a huge deal as far as what we're talking about here, but when you really get into the industry, you try not to be constantly blasting the house, the brick, or the siding with water. You want it to go ahead and deteriorate the fence, right? I mean, it's going to has to hit something. So if you have a fence on the property boundary line, you typically will go away from the house towards the fence area. Make sure ICVs, make sure you're calling out the sprinkler control box that runs all the stations. Make sure you're calling out the backflow preventer as well. That's usually right after the supply line to the house, where it cuts off supply line to the house and then cuts off for the irrigation supply line. You have a backflow preventer there. Patterns were big. If there's a tree represented, make sure it's a ghost tree so I can see it underneath. You can see the sprinkler pattern underneath. What's happening underneath that tree? If you have a solid tree outline, you can't see what's underneath. Make sure you have that just the outline of the tree. You can have branches, but make sure you can see underneath the sprinkler lines, you know, what's happening there. And make sure that we're getting coverage. If you have grass all the way up to the tree, make sure you're getting adequate coverage there as well. Okay, I think those are mostly some of the things missing on that. If you're running a line underneath concrete sidewalk or a driveway, show it as a hidden sprinkler line going under there as well. Let's see, I think that's about it. So that should make everybody getting on an even playing field for the midterm. So those are the two things I wanted to point out. I have some other announcements, but I'll wait till tomorrow on that. That we'll talk about other things, not important, but the big thing was bringing you up to speed on the irrigation plan, and then also if you're looking for work, don't forget to get your resume, and I would do it today because I need to get these over to Aerotech as soon as possible if you're interested. They are setting up interviews this week, and I'm sure there'll be virtual interviews as well. All right. That should do it now. Let me see if anything came in. James Meek says, I had the emitters called out. They were black dots, but you counted off of that. If I did, I'll go back and review it. I'm pretty sure I zoomed in on everything to see them. So either I couldn't see them or I just missed them completely, but that's why I should at least call out one of the emitters with a leader line and arrowhead, and then have a note, 15 emitters. You don't have to call it the pattern, the volume, gallons per minute, or any of that. Just, for example, there's 15 emitters. Have the black dots, like I said, James, and call out one of them, and then how many you have, 15 TYP. Most trees can't have the trunks blasted. No, they don't have to be blasted, but you can have irrigation still going to them in a sprinkler system. They don't have to have full thrust of like a half hitting the trunk. But I have one out front on either side of this huge oak, and it's not affecting it at all. In fact, it needs more water around the oak because of the grass situation. All right. So that should wrap it up. We'll get started on the midterm. You're going to have the entire class to do the midterm. There will be no lecture today. I will be available not for questions on the midterm, but for any technical issues, or if something is not worded clearly. I'm not going to answer any questions of the questions, but if something is not worded clearly, you can put it in the chat box, and I'll be here to try to clarify that for you. So you have the entire class period, and I think I have directions on the next page. I think it might close even at 3:30, so you have an extra 15 minutes on that. And that's for part 1 and 2. So let's get to the directions. If there's no questions or statements on that, we'll go ahead and move to the directions on the midterm and get going on that. All right. So here are the directions. I'll read through them. Hold on before you get going, so make sure you understand everything. They're pretty concise. There's directions on part 2 as well. So let's talk about that for a second. Log on the Blackboard. It's under tests and then midterms, and you'll see part 1 and part 2 under tests in Blackboard. Password for both parts is midcad2. All capital letters and the number 2, no spaces. Make sure you to click save after each question. No backtracking again on the questions. Part 1 has 15 questions, 375 points possible. Open notes, open textbook, not open PowerPoint, not open Neighbor, not open Internet, and not any open lecture notes. So the honesty policy is in place here. Make sure you click on Save and Submit before exiting the test. That's on the questions. That's on both of them, actually. Make sure you hit Save and Submit. Part 2, follow the directions on Part 2, 400 points possible. There again, it's a irrigation design challenge for you. Make sure you click on Save and Submit before you exit the test. Now, when you do that on this, it's looking for a file response. It's going to give you a warning. You did not attach anything. You did not attach anything. You did not attach anything. That is correct. You will not attach anything. You will not attach anything to Blackboard. Everything is going to be emailed in, that we'll talk about in 1 second here. So it will give you an error message saying you didn't attach anything. Okay, I know I didn't, and then hit Save and Submit on that and just move on. And then you can check with me if you want to make sure that I received the test, that the first part, Part 1, was completed, and Part 2, that you closed Part out completely, and that you emailed me. I've received the email on Part 2. The email, again, will be 1 DWG and 1 PDF of the process. All right. Part 1 and 2, click on Save and Submit. Before you exit the midterm. Part 2 will need to be emailed to the instructor by 3:30 p.m. So you have till 3:30, a little bit longer today before it closes out. 3:30 on today. Email the instructor DWG and 1 PDF on a D sheet. Do not attach any drawings to Blackboard tests. Everything is emailed in. No late submissions will be accepted after the 3:30, 11:16 today at that time. So make sure you give yourself, a good 5 minutes to make sure everything's PDF ready to go. Don't wait till 3:30 to send it in. It's going to be, I guarantee you, something's going to happen. PDF won't work just right. Something, that file won't attach right. Something's going to happen. Give yourself a little cushion. That's why I gave you some extra minutes here, not just the entire class period. So you have some extra time. No late submissions in midterm Part 1 and 2, 3:30 p.m. Will close down. All right, so make sure you get that taken care of, and I'll pause for 1 second for a question. And then as I'm waiting for questions, I'll go over here and make sure that it has released. It says it's still hidden from students. That means what's going on with that. Part 1 and 2. And I got one more button to push here. And it should release at 12:30. Okay, that one should be good. And then if you want to try to log on to Blackboard, Part 1 should be showing up, and I'm going to release Part 2. So you can take them in either order you want. Just remember, everything has to be in by 3:30. You can't backtrack. You can't go back into Part 1. Remember that as well. And make available, and 12:30, and submit on Part 2. So if you're already there, you might have to hit refresh, and Part 1 and 2 should be showing up for you. Best of luck to you, and you have till 3:30, and I'll be here to answer any questions. And I'll stop the recording now.